of the Tanya 23 experience, except for today, we're having a portion for Melanin Dialogue. And today we have a very special guest, Senator Hubert Bass, and we'll give him a chance to introduce himself. We have Brother Raheem Shabazz, which was the actual contact for this meeting. So we just want to commend him for being a networker and a bridge builder. And we have Black Service Podcast, Brother Thomas, who is representing his podcast as well. So I want to welcome everyone. And let's just go around and give everyone a chance to introduce themselves. And we will start with the senator. Peace and blessings. You have to unmute your mic. Yeah, you're on mute.
All right. I'll start over. Peace and blessings. And I want to thank you and as the host, and I'd like to thank Brother Raheem for inviting me on. And it's a pleasure to be here. Always an honor to be in the presence of such great and honorable brothers and sisters. Thank you.
Absolutely. We have, let's see, Brother Thomas from Black Service Podcast.
Yes, how y'all doing? Peace and blessings to everybody, man. Very happy to have have me on here. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you for coming, and especially on such short notice. And then we have Brother Raheem. You have to unmute your mic. Can you hear us? Brother Raheem, it's on you. Yeah, you got to unmute your mic. Oh, you can't? There you go. It's unmuted on my end. Yeah, I still can't. We can't hear you. Let me see if there's anything on this side. No. Yeah, try going out and coming back in. Yes. So in the meantime, what our discussion is today is we're here to talk about the state of reparations. I'm sure we all have questions, and I actually formulated some really good questions, and I can't log into my my chat GPT right now for some reason. But I figure I'm just going to wing it as a person that has had questions for years now and wondering who is our representative as we look into media today. It looks as if people are trying to represent us and we have not chosen them. So finally, we have Senator Hubert Bass here that is already connected, so he can give us firsthand information and not some celebrity stuff that we've been receiving over the media. As a born African American citizen, I would love to know, where are we in the talks of reparations in 2024?
Yes, thank you. Okay, thank you. First of all, I'm a senator in the Afro-descendant nation. The Afro-descendant nation was the term Afro-descendant. Let me start with that. The term Afro-descendant was agreed upon by 19 nations in the slavery diaspora. So in the Western Hemisphere, there were 19 nations, including representation from the United States, that met in Honduras in 2002. And they was protected under the protection of the United Nations. And they came up with the term Afro-descendant for those of us who were displaced and was brought into forced labor. So that's where the term Afro-descendant came from. It's a legal term under international law. So we refer to ourselves in the slavery diaspora under international law as Afro-descendants. We also know that reparations are paid from one nation to another nation. So that being said, we had to have a government set up under international law in order to receive any type of payment from one nation to another nation. And just as a backdrop, so that if you call yourself an African American, Black, Hebrew, all the other terms that we tend to call ourselves, that's fine. So you could say, well, I'm a Hebrew Israelite Afro descendant. I'm more Afro descendant, foundational American Afro descendant. And that's important in legal terms. It's very important that we attach Afro descendant to our nationality under for as legalities are concerned. Where are we in terms of reparations? So what is happening right now? We have to go through these processes under the world that we live in, So right now we're conducting a plebiscite, and which is a vote for self-determination. And if you haven't taken the vote, you simply text the word reparations to 877-506-2184, and you make your vote.
Let me have
So
you
that's
repeat that one more
877.
time. Okay.
Yeah, 877-506-2184. One more time, it's 877-506-2184. And you text the word reparations to that number, and you will receive a ballot in which you vote for. It's about 7 questions that you will answer. When we reach a determined amount of our people who have taken the vote, I think the last time we discussed it, they want at least 1 million votes in favor of self-determination. We intend to take that to the international community, or the ICJ, the International Court of Justice in The Hague, and to present our case. Now, let's be clear. We know that the whole world know what they've done to us. They know how much they owe us. They know the evil and atrocities that happened to us. But nevertheless, we still have to go forward with our claim. Once we get that claim and get a judgment, then it is up to us to assert our right to self-determination. So there are several things that we can do in asserting that right. But for the international level, that's what the Afro-descendant nation is working in. Now, on the national level, we've partnered with a lot of other reparations groups, from INCOBRA and others. We've been in contact with, we've partnered with groups that are reparations groups. So we have even MOUs signed with some of these groups, and working together where we can, because it's a big battlefield. It's a big wide front that we're fighting on. So this month there's another group from the Afro-descendant nation under the NGO, which is a non-governmental organization that speaks at the United Nations, called AFRE. That's AFRE, all for reparations and emancipation. They will be speaking at the UN for reparations on our behalf this month in Geneva. So I look forward to getting the report back from AFRE on their trip to Geneva in the United Nations. But be clear, we're going to have to prepare our people for this, because in asserting our right, we're going to have to exercise discipline and control in this country. Only believe and respect 2 things. That's the dealing with its financial infrastructure or lives. That's it. That's what this country it respects.
Okay. Any questions from the panel? I wanted to know, for each state, it looks like California and some other states have already gotten approved. Let's just say California. There's a rumor, or I've actually seen it on the news, that they have some approval for reparations. And I guess they're in the stages of coming up with dollar amounts and how it would be dispersed. But I believe it was separately through the Catholic Church or whatever church faction um, that it came from. I do not believe it was federally approved. Do you have any info on that?
No, I don't have any info on it, but I will say this, that around the country, their local governments, state governments are studying reparations, maybe even providing some monetary funds. We have to be careful, and I'm not saying that we should turn it down or that's not good, but this obviously is a federal issue. See, we have to be careful of taking things and saying that's it, because whether they give it to us or not in California and other states, there's a debt still to be paid, because if California does what it probably has done or is attempting to do, that's great. They need to do that and some more. So we don't want to lose sight that it is actually a federal issue, that has to be paid to all of our people. And when we
Right.
say full and complete reparations, we're not just talking about monetary payment, because if we got monetary payment, it's not fair to future generations, because for one, this country has gotten wealthy on several generations of our people. So we have to give the future generations of our people a chance to capitalize on any reparations that we receive in this day and time. So we talk about reparations, we're talking about land, we're talking about institutions, we're talking about infrastructure. We're really talking about defendable borders, because I don't believe that our people can be in a healthy environment, healthy state, if we continue to be around our oppressors. We need to be quarantined from them. So at the end of it, we have to have a starting point, but at the end of it, we need defendable borders as for our reparations.
Now, when you say defendable borders, can you break that down just a little bit? I'm a little confused. So that's within the United States, defendable borders?
Yes, preferably here or elsewhere, but defendable borders just mean a nation of our own. We've earned that right. We spilled the blood in every war. We've had 100 years of lynchings, black codes, and all manner of evil. We've earned the right to have a nation of our own. I mean, after all, we saw it happen before. Israel, they suffered a few years of the Holocaust, and I would beg to differ that we have suffered more, much more. And they have, under international law, been recognized with all of their brutality against the Palestinian people as having a nation of their own now. And there should be no different for us who have suffered for more than 400 years and counting under the American system of white supremacy, which equals terrorism. So
Right.
we should have a nation of our own, a land of our own, right here in the United States. We pay for it here. Yes.
Yes. Has there been any discussion on, let's see, the actual who will be eligible? So we're talking about citizens that were born here, and then there's a part 2 to that. Those of us that have had our DNA done let's say, for instance, ancestry.com, they have in the fine print for entertainment purposes only. And it's supposed to be able to be used as a source of, you know, where our people go. So personally, I got mine done, and there is a direct trace from the Congo into South Carolina, um, for a group of people that were enslaved, and that's where they ended up. And so that is a story within itself that each person gets when they go through this ancestry thing. So the bottom line is, have they come up with any tangible levels like education, healthcare, finances, land? Do we know what we're asking for?
Okay, yes. So as far as who qualifies for reparations, lineage will play a part. This is why it's so important to identify as Afro descendant. Like, say, for instance, you can have a man or woman from Nigeria come to the United States. Well, they're still African American if they come here and they get their citizenship, but their parents and ancestors didn't suffer under the American slave system. So the definition of Afro descendant, once you take the plebiscite vote, you agree to that definition, which sets you apart from Africans coming here or others coming here from throughout the diaspora. So that's important legally. That's why the term Afro descendant is important. So yeah, lineage is important to determine where, who's eligible. And as far as what we're asking for, now I can tell you what the Afro descendant nation is asking for. I've heard others, pretty much asking for monetary uh, compensation for slavery, but we tend to look at a situation very similar to what Randall Robinson, even in his book The Debt, said. We want education, yes. Healthcare, yes. All of these things, to for free for our people. We've paid it. Tax exemption, yes. That allows us to be able to gain wealth and to build wealth, because right now, without reparations, we'll never be able to close the wealth gap, which means shortly we won't be able to compete in the American framework. And if we're not able to compete in the American framework, we're in serious trouble. And we'll be at the bottom because our tax dollars are going to prop up illegal immigrants and others who are coming here, whether they come in here illegally or legally, that the United States is bringing in from Ukraine, from Afghanistan, and other countries. Our tax dollars is propping them up while we're being left behind. So we have to be able to close that wealth gap in order to compete in the American framework.
Absolutely. Because I'm under the understanding that what do we are like the 40 percentile of the taxpayers in America? You would just say we're 40%, close to 50. I would say, well, maybe a little over 40, but I haven't gotten the updated stats on that. But what I do know is we have the financial power is in the trillions, or at least $1 trillion for us here as far as consumers. And is there any talk of leverage for like this year's election? I feel that we need to absolutely come together now, and because our vote is very important. And so I feel like it was trickery last time, and they used celebrities to gain the young people and their votes. And then now this year, they're going to try to leverage the immigrant vote. But even still, the African American vote is very prominent. And so, is there any talk of us leveraging our demands for this important election in 2024?
Oh, is that to me or
Yes.
any other panel?
Yes. No.
Yeah.
You can
Well,
answer that.
okay. So I have not, as far as the Afro-descendant nation is concerned, no,
Mhm.
I have not been in any discussions or in any rooms where we talked about leveraging the vote for the American presidential election. Um, I don't know how much talk it's been in other groups, even the groups we partnered with. Um, so I'm not sure, but I do know, I have heard rather, that some groups have discussed, leveraging their vote in terms of the presidential election. Um, so I'm not sure, but I have not heard that or been in a room where that's discussed in the Afro-descendant nation.
Okay, last question, then we're going to come to the panel. Would you suggest that the United States government fund reparations on their own, or do they need to have a collective? Because, like you say, it was a trail, it was a cycle. So there were slaves everywhere, that got dropped off to these different places. We're worried about these United States and those of us that are born and raised here, and then our ancestors who worked here. So would you say that, and a lot of it had to do with the church as well, as I don't know who had more power, was it the church or the government? But should they fund it on their own? Because by my calculations, LOL, it's looking into the millions for one person. If I pulled out my Medea calculator and started doing all these calculations, I would say it's a pretty penny per person. And I don't think that this government, well, they seem to be able to handle every other bill that they have. And we all know there's been trillions sent away, already. And so would you suggest that our government plan on funding reparations themselves?
Yeah, the short answer, yes. This government can afford to do it. I mean, it may, there are those who pretend that it cannot. However, we know that this government funds with an open check, when it comes to war and terrorism around the world, that it sponsors, it has an open checkbook. It only is a problem when there's a discussion on domestic issues. So yes, this government should be forced to fund it, and it should be funded over a period of time. And I'm like I said, I'm not really for a one-time cash payment and that's the end of it, because that's very dangerous in my view. If you pay each qualified Afro descendant $3 million, where's he going to spend it? He's going to spend it with his oppressors, and when it's gone, he's finished with you. And you're still under his system, and you're not going to be able to complain about what he's done to you. He's going to say, I paid you, and he'll kill you. He'll kill you for it.
Yeah,
So
it literally. Go
yeah,
ahead.
so
Sorry.
that's, oh, no problem. So it's a very dangerous predicament to be in, because if you think he won't do it, just remember he's the children of his father, and he will do it. So we propose defendable borders, land, and we propose that this is done over a period of generations, so that there's not a one-time, as I've heard thrown out, 14 trillion, $20 trillion payment in one time. This definitely can be staggered over time. But in my view, let's be very clear. The whole process we must be prepared for confrontation.
Absolutely. And that seems to be where we are now, like with all these movies coming out, Civil War and whatnot. And it just seems like a process that is planned to try to deter us from, trying to receive what we all feel that we should have for our ancestors and whatnot. But my thing is this: say they pay one person $3 million. Is that supposed to be for him and his family, or is there separate payments for everyone? Is what we're asking. So, say there's a family that has 12 children in it. Does everyone get a check, or does the head of household receive it? And there, there's also the thing that as soon as people that have been oppressed and haven't had much money, as soon as they start to receive this money, it's as if the government will receive it right back, because of course everyone's going to get a home, and I don't blame them, you know, and get the things that we have been denied trying to get on our own. And so I wonder, is that, do each of us, because there's a lot of us and we're still being born here in America. So, you know, is that proposed a single check, or do you think that it would be like a head of household type of thing, or they would go through the IRS to disperse the payments?
Well, what it should be is for every living soul, whether that person is 1 month old or, 80 years old, or
Right.
whatever, and if that have to be put in trust, that's fine. The issue is, as people would think that money is the great equalizer, not so. Not when you live in under America's racist system that oppresses us and terrorizes us. So even if we have the money, that does not stop the redlining, the government-sponsored discrimination, the gutting of equal rights. So this is why it's so important that we must have a land that we can call our own, as far as our own nation.
Mm,
So we've had a lot of wealthy black men and women in America to fall and to go under because of racism in America. So money is not the great equalizer when you don't control your nation's policies, its laws. So we, at the end of it, we have to have a nation, land, where we can call our own, so we can set up our own government, so we can be the stewards of our own selves. Because under the American system, we've tried it, it's not going to work.
okay. And so that proposes a America within an America. So we would have to come to some agreement on uh how this land is already separated. 'Cause as far as I know, there is no separate land that they can just say, okay, we're going to designate this over here. There is no this over there. Everything is designated within the 50 states. And so that would mean our request is asking for some of that. And that's absolutely going to be met with pushback. Is that kind of what we're asking?
Yes. So we're asking for land that we can call our own here or elsewhere, preferably here.
Mm,
And if it's here,
mm,
then there will be pushback, there will be confrontation. So we just have to know that on the front end. So we have to prepare ourselves. So it's either, as the white man says, give me liberty or give me death, or
mm.
we stay here and suffer a long, slow, painful death. Because without reparations, without restorative justice for us, we will not be able to compete. So they have something in store for people that are
Mm,
useless.
mhm.
So
Absolutely.
it's what it is. We have to determine what's important to us, and we have to have the courage to do what's what we know is right. So
Absolutely.
we're not lacking anything other than courage.
Yes. Well, for the laws that they created and by their constitution, they are in debt because it is there. Number one, they classified us as not a full human. We have to, it's just so much that needs to be done. The thing is, if they said, look, we're going to give you this land over here, of course, that's immediate pushback because, like I said, it's already inhabited. And so I wonder, is that like we do need our own, and we have built this land here. And so that part is not to be questioned. So rightfully, we should have space here for ourselves. But being that they already have this designated system, we pretty much would have to wait for this to fall and then rebuild ours. But then that's no reparations, because that's still more work. We have to rebuild on still again nothing, or whatever we could recover, which would probably be next to nothing. Well, there's so much that needs to be done. My thing is, our people need cash payments now. We want the credit industry to stop being racist. We want to know from this government what is the problem. And we know that we're owed. So decade after decade, what is the problem? So we need to know from them what is their problem, because it's not so much what we need. We're already here and we're doing what we can, but we need to know exactly what is their problem. They keep saying they're pushing it back. Oh, we want to have a conversation. No, we've had the conversation. So we just need to know point blank, what is their problem? What is the problem with getting this approved federally?
Yeah.
It's been promised. Every election, it's been promised.
Yes. What I see. Okay. So it's a matter for them of survival. So as I said earlier, at the end of it, there is confrontation. There's, I don't see a way around that. The scale of confrontation may be different, but will be a confrontation. See, because they understand, not only in America, but Europe, the Caucasian world understands, in order to survive and even compete, that the playing field must be uneven. See, this is why France robs Africa and the other European countries rob Africa. Africa must stay poor in order for them to be first world countries, because really, based on the resources, Europe is the third world or fourth world based on resources. Here in America, the playing field have to be uneven for Caucasians and so-called white people to compete with us. And even on a uneven playing field, we still outstride them with our best and brightest. So if the playing field becomes even, what happens to them? So it's a matter of survival. But to your point about cash payments now and what need to be done. So if that is the question, then what needs to be done? You have to start over. You have to start with them trashing the Constitution and rewriting it. The whole thing have to be trashed. You can't amend it. You can't reform it. You can't do none of that. All of it have to go away, and you have to start over. And the question, even with that, are they willing to do it? They're not willing to do any of this. In my view, they're not willing to do it. Now, will they be forced to do it? That's another question. But are they willing? Absolutely not.
So there's going to have to be some sort of movement going on, in which, they really need to think about, because other countries already don't like them, and if this is in shambles, then that puts them in jeopardy. So I really do think that we have great leverage now to say that we're not participating in any of your whatever you have going on. So there's a theory that if you were to everyone were to, and it's not always going to be everyone, but the majority of us would not work or do anything into their system, and in 5 days they would fail. Is there any truth to that?
Yes, of course. Again, two things that this country in the Caucasian world respects is the taking of life or taking of their financial framework. So when you affect so the civil rights movements, for instance, it wasn't the marching that got things done. It was the boycotting. It was when you're not spending money, when you affect the financial framework. Yes, that's how you bring people to the table. So this is why I said that while we're going through these processes, we have to be talking about what's next, because there is a what's next. There's only two routes you can take. You have to either affect the financial framework or you have to get physical. So these are the only
Yeah.
two things that you can do. So
Yes.
affecting the financial framework does work. It does work.
I believe we need to try that because I think it does work. As much as they want to put us on the bottom of the totem pole, our people are out here working. And from what I hear, there's more Caucasians that receive Section 8 and welfare than the African Americans. Maybe we receive the Section 8 because, let's face it, to live in any of these states is incredible. The rent amounts here in Baltimore are $2,000 a month or more. And this is rampant all over. And so being that they won't implement any laws to regulate the people that actually own the land for the renters, we are the ones paying it off for them, you know? And so we have little rights. So the thing is, there is stuff that they can implement now, but of course they are gonna wait until we make a move. And so you already mentioned the two options, but I've been saying that we have a much more leverage financially than we would by having any sort of physical confrontation. And I just say that because I think of the children, you know. Um, and so, as a mother goddess, I would say we would avoid that until we can't anymore. But there are other ways. Like we're going to have a discussion tomorrow about homeschooling. You know, it is the inner city that keeps these things alive, because the children go there, and we know it's not a healthy system. And so, yeah, there's a lot of ways that we could literally buckle this system, and show that we do have leverage. And we if we can just come together, because I see us as having too many factions. They're this, the that, the Hebrews, the this, the that, the Muslims, the Christians, but none of that is the question. We need to come together just as people and make a change for once, you know. And I know it can be done, and it doesn't have to be sparked off by a police killing or a shooting or any of these things that they try to use to irk us into option number two. We all know that they want us to choose option number two, but we are going to choose the correct way, the smart way, the intelligent way, and we're going to take option number one, because just as much as they say money doesn't matter, over here where I'm at, money talks till this day. And if you don't have it, you don't have anything. So until the day that it doesn't have any value, we're going to push through that, because I know right now it's all about the money in this land. And if we're playing their game, that is the way. And we can do it, because look at there's a millionaire, a black millionaire born almost every day. The children are making millions on like playing games and whatnot. if we could come and become focused and even say, yeah, we're coming up to an election time. I really do feel that this is a great year to make a great stride, because we shouldn't do a damn thing with our vote and with our dollar. But it has to be something like, oh, on this date, we're shutting everything down. I don't know. Is there enough immigrants in the country to run all the jobs that we do, the technical jobs that we do? The men, that are down here digging ditches and trying to rebuild the bridges and whatnot? That's some of us there too. We're still working in those jobs, even though they try to overshadow us. But I do believe that if we came together financially, we could move these negotiations along much quicker. So we're going to hear from the panel. And so how do you guys feel about the discussion? We have, let's go with our guest service podcast. What would you like to say?
What's up? What's going on? So first and foremost, hey, I wouldn't even know where to start. Like, because I don't even know where to start. There's so many places to start. I would first say we need to have our own land. Ben said that. Even in conversations you and I have had, Ben said we need to have our own space. I always make the suggestion of going back to Africa and building that, and pushing the people out of there, or going somewhere where they have someone that's not of melanin. I'll say it like that. Because I see videos every day of people who are not of our skin tone going over, taking over places that our people are at. So I would say first and foremost, maybe spreading out a little bit more and bringing order to some of those places when it comes to things of that nature, like when it comes to people of non-melanin. Um, when it comes to reparations, when it comes, to that, I would want more of the land than I would the money. That's personally you know, my thing. I would want more of the land than I would want the money. But to each their own. Um, but I mean, we first have to be unified before we can even, you know, we can talk about reparations. But at the end of the day, we have to come to some unification within us all, and that's just my personal opinion. Because once you give that money back, you gave that money back, or once you let's say it's money. I'll just go with that. Let's say it's money. You done already done given it back to your oppressor. So then what good was the money that you fought for so long? Now that you finally got it, then you run out there and give it back.
Which is why we're asking for another, to have our own government system, but for it to be protected. Like, I totally understand what the senator is saying, because we're going up against an entire country that has a military and all these other factions,
Well, we need to
so.
start having our own, or start building our own. And
But the thing is, we need to have the protected space, because as we're building, we already went through that. We got Juneteenth, the holiday out of that, Black Wall Street, another holiday that we received. Like, we already know their capability and what they will do. So our thing is, how can we come to an agreement that they will hold up against the agreement, which is why we have to have the United Nations involved. But you see that how that's actually working for Pakistan. It's a very slow process. And meanwhile, people are dying. To me, it's a cut and dry situation, but which is taking nations all of this time to make a fair decision about something. But we are asking for our own, you know, protected situation. But we have to ask the world to make sure that they hold up against this protection agreement, which is like with what NATO was doing with Russia over there in the Ukraine type of situation, you know? So at this point, what they need to do is, you know, because a lot more damnation is coming to this place. And that's just what it is, you know. They need to start lifting up on some of that karma. So I kind of agree with you. Perhaps if I got a certain amount of money, I would most certainly go to Africa and build me and my family a nice house. I would definitely do that, you know, and become a dual citizen. And we should all have that option. You know, that should be one of the options. Because let's face it, some of us are just tired here. We don't want to be here. We would love to have an opportunity to go back home. There's many of us like that. But what we don't want to do is suffer in the midst. So, Brother Raheem, go ahead and talk.
Yes, sir. Yes, give me the. I'll be going. Yeah, I would love
You're
to.
really muffled. Come, bring the mic up to your mouth if you can.
I would love to have
Really
to.
muffled.
I said I'll be going.
Yeah, I can't really hear anything. Maybe hit us in the chat and I'll read it out for you or something. You could do a comment. You know, comment in the chat and I'll read it out. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Um, yeah, so I did have another question. Um, I just had some news come through. Did they say I think Taiwan just had a major earthquake? Is that something that just happened? Like today? I don't know. I have a news station and that just like came through on my thing. Um we have to have some sort of business education and guidance for those that will receive this money, you know. It's not the government's problem or anything. It's our problem to make sure or put the resources out there so people just don't go ahead and waste their money. You know, there are ways to build generational wealth with $1 million. You know, people say, oh, that ain't no money. Yes, it is. Well, to me, well, let me have it then. If it's no money, you know, but you know, there are a group of us that need to have business education, you know, on money. You know, it's not just run to the store and buy this and that, because you're putting it right back where it came from. So there is a lot more work to do. I could see that we were like pretty much where we were last year with it. Um it looks like we're still, you know, in the same place in negotiations, and just hoping that, you know, can you tell us where this administration lies with their promise that they gave us? The Biden administration gave us a promise of reparations approval, and I haven't seen that till today. So being that we can hold them to their promises, how is that working out? Senator, if you can
That's
shed some light on that.
you know, their promise.
We got a lag. Maybe refresh on your end. Hold on 1 second. Let me see if I can. Are you there,
They
Senator? Can you hear
abandon
me?
us.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Yes.
Okay, you were lagged
Yes.
for a minute, so we
I'll
didn't
start
hear
over.
you.
I don't know if I.
Yeah, we didn't hear you that time.
Okay. So Right. Okay, so I'll start over. Well, their word is no good. We just start with that. Their word is no good. So they played a game with us that we've been involved in called good cop, bad cop. The Democrats here lately has been the good cop, Republicans been the bad cop. But what we have to know is they both work for the same department, which is white supremacy. So
Mm-hmm.
they just have a different bedside manner, as we say in healthcare. You know, some doctors have great bedside manners, some don't. And even though the doctors that mean you no good, if they got a great bedside manner, you'll take a killing with a smile because they're talking so well and they have your attention and they're poisoning you.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the Democrat Republican Party as we know it. It's good cop, bad cop, but both work for the same department, which is white supremacy. So
Mm-hmm.
that being said, I also wanted to say that in our fight for reparations, whether we are uh, going after the financial framework, I think we need to be clear about one thing. We're not going to avoid some level of confrontation. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, and we just have to prepare for that. Now, to what level, I don't know. I don't know that. But even if we were disciplined enough and we become disciplined enough to affect the American financial framework, when we start making our demands, and we must have land and territory we can call our own, because even if we get money, they have ways of getting that back by creating
Mm-hmm.
unfair and unjust laws, rules, policies, regulations. They put those things in place and they'll get it back. So money in an unfair system is not the great equalizer.
Right.
It is not the great equalizer. So, that being said, we have to have some land that we can call our own and separate ourselves where we can be the masters of our own destiny. And we do it like
Mm-hmm.
any other nation. Once we secure the land, we make agreements with others for security and for trade. I think part of our problem, as I said earlier, is the lack of courage. And that's because these people seem as giants to us. And they are. But let's look at it. When the Americans here in America went up against the British at that time in 1776 and before, the British were the superpower of the earth. Nobody wanted to challenge the British Royal Navy. They were the
Mm-hmm.
superpower. But they gave in, they were defeated. You have all of these, when the Soviet Union fell, you have Georgia and Ukraine and all of these, Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan, these little bitty provinces went up against big mighty Russia. And guess
Mm-hmm.
what? They got their independence. So you see, the problem has been, family, that we have been the only one burying our dead. You understand? Like, we've been the only one losing our lives. But when the
Mm-hmm.
other side lose lives and they see how it feels, see, they don't know how that feels. But when their mothers and grandmothers experience how we feel, people gonna get called to the table. See, everybody gonna want to sit down and talk about what can we do to stop this. See, they just
Mm-hmm.
never experienced that.
Mm-hmm.
See, if we lose, and this is just hypothetically speaking, if we lose 2 million, even if they lose a 500,000, but these are mothers and parents and grandparents. See, they've never experienced that. So we know what it feels like. We don't want to experience any of that because we know what it feels like
Mm-hmm.
to suffer at the
Mm-hmm.
hands of. If that was to happen, the institutions would not stay intact. The American military would split. You got blacks in the American military that won't pull the trigger in black communities. It just wouldn't happen. Some would, some wouldn't. That it creates factions. So this thing is much more complicated than we really think. Now, I'm not advocating for that. Let's be clear. No sane person would advocate for that. Okay, but if it but it may come to that in some form. Well, it will come to that in some form or some degree. To what degree, I'm not sure, but there will be physical pushback, even if we put the American
Yes,
framework,
from the race,
financial framework
more from
control.
the yes, I believe it would be more from racist citizens, you know, the racist citizens on the ground that would have the confrontation push back at first, that would be the first thing to worry about. Now, if this government is so much for having peace and whatnot, then they would tell their racist people to stand down. It is their
Well, what they
responsibility
could,
because there are laws here that they do have to abide by. And to attack one group because of something, a negotiation that we're having with the government, that is just as bad as them storming the White House. And they have a problem with that. They're still trying to get people that was climbing up and doing all that. What did they call it? The insurrection. Well,
right.
that has been done to us. Anytime we try to fight for our freedom or stand up for what's right, you got the hoses, the dogs, and all of these different things, thrown in prison and whatnot. So we already know what that leads to. And that shit is old. We living in a whole nother time. If things don't get right, they're going to start seeing their suffering coming from a whole different level that they can't control. And I'm talking about weather patterns and all the different things that their white supremacy has no rule over. And so they have been warned, and if they haven't, they have now, that if we don't have anything, then it is just to say that they're not going to have anything either. So they pretty much need to do what's right for their survival. And let me make this clear. Tanya 23 Experience podcast is not sending out any threats. I'm just telling you what's going to happen. And that is my right to speak. So I'm not looking forward to any pushback, and neither is the senator. So the thing about it is that we're at a point in time now where when you make promises and you don't keep them, there's a price to pay. And for the longest time, when you exert your power over a specific thing, eventually, and it's scientific, you're going to get that in reverse. We don't want to hang around for what's going to happen here. So they could just write us a check and we'll be on our way. And who am I speaking for? Myself and others that feel the same way. Because I pretty much know it's a wrap for this place. So how does everybody feel about that? And then, we can wrap it up after this.
Well, I think that we should have options, and that's one option. If that's what it's going to be, fine. You know, like I said, I prefer a land of our own with our own people that have suffered the way we have suffered, that understands our culture, our what it has become. We've suffered a civil death, we suffered ethnocide, and we are pretty much a new people. So what you see in us is ethnogenesis, a beginning of a new people, that we're not quite African anymore, but we definitely not, Caucasian. But even though we speak their language, we have their names and all
Right.
of this kind, their holidays, their traditions. So we are a new people, and like I said, I would prefer a land of our own, but certainly that would be an option. What you said would certainly be an option, because if that's the way it went down, I'm with you. I'm out.
Absolutely. And that would make this land suffer. Like they think that they can make everything do so great without us, and I believe that that's their attitude when our ancestors built everything mostly, and we, invented all these inventions that they are still, you know profiting off of and benefiting, just because they can take someone's, I invented something and you did a little this and that, and you thought you improved it, now it's in your name type of thing. And oh, you're not going to come after me because I'm going to create something called a copyright. So we know about their level of uh what would you call it, sinister dealings that they have. And so I just want to say again, that's a wrap. It's definitely going to come back, and so they need to start figuring out how can they lighten up on what's going to happen, because if we pick up and decide to leave here, they're still going to fall. They have to realize, the part that we actually play here. We built this place. I don't even see it in operation without us, you know and things are going back to like we can rely on natural law. Like we came here as a spiritual people, we are going to have to rise up as a spiritual people. And I'm not talking about putting anybody on a pedestal. I'm talking about our inner spirituality is what's going to help us move this thing along. Because let's face it, we have some of our people that is out of here. They're teaching their children how to twerk, and the Sodom and Gomorrah scene has just went crazy with our people. But everybody else around the world is mimicking us and want to be us. When you go into Japan, they're rapping and breakdancing. In China, they're doing the same thing. Um, Even in the Middle East, they want to be us. We know they own all the corner stores in our neighborhood. We've been dealing with them for years. They want to be us. They act like us. So everybody around the world wants to be us. It's just here in America where we get the universal foot on our neck, so to speak. So people that never leave this country won't see that they are supreme royalty on the planet. But we have just been conditioned here with this craziness, and it's all because they don't want to pay up. Because the information's out there. That's why they didn't want us to read or any of that stuff. But that didn't work either. Now we're back and we come to get what we're supposed to have. And if we don't get it, then nobody has anything. Simple as that. So we're going to keep negotiating and forming talks and whatnot. And Mother Nature is going to do what she does as well. That's a message that I feel like I'm charged to say as a spiritual leader. It's almost detrimental that this country comes up with an offer. And those that think that they're not involved, your kind, your people is not involved in our struggle. I got another thing to tell you. Everybody suffers when the original people don't get what they're supposed to have in the land. Period. So it's whatever. Like, it's not going to be peaches and cream for everybody that's not Black in this situation. And so, there's a lot of people that think it's not their issue, but they're going to see that it is. And so that's all I have to say. I want to thank you so much, Senator. And I hope that, you could come back maybe once a month or once every couple of months or so and just let us know, where we are. I really appreciate your, how you came in and, you're a regular person and you came in as such. We appreciate that. Because this is a very high level as far as I'm concerned. I have so much respect for you as holding a title in this place. And yes, that is a great accomplishment to make it there in the midst of all that I'm sure was against you. So, you know, much love and blessings for making it there. And as your sister, I am with you. Um, please contact me if you need anything, you know. Um, yes. And you're always welcome here at the Tanya 23 Experience podcast.
All right. Thank you for having me, sister. And I always
I wanted to make one last shout out that there is a national reparations convention that's going to be
Brother
in
Rahim,
Washington,
brother,
D.C.
yes. Rahim, you
yes,
gotta mute so I could hear you.
there we
Sorry. Okay, there you go.
go. Yeah. There yeah, shout out to we have the Afro Descendant Nation is partnered with several other organizations who will be sponsoring a National Reparations Convention in Washington, D.C. next month, May the
Ooh,
17th, 18th, 19th, and 20th. And
would you be
20th.
able to
So
text me that
um,
information so I could circulate it?
I
If you
will.
could
I'll
text
send
it
it to
to
you.
me, okay, great. I appreciate
I will.
that.
Okay. And I
That's
want to say
something
one
that
last
we can
thing.
be involved in.
Yes, to also remind our viewers to text the word reparations to take the plebiscite
Yes,
vote for reparations and self-determination. Text the word reparations to 877-506-2184. 877-506-2184. Thank you so much.
yes, great. I will definitely be pushing that. Is this something that we can continue to circulate? Is there a deadline date or anything like that?
Yes. Well, we hope to, if it's all possible, we're trying to get 1 million votes sometime by December. But if that don't happen, we're going to continue on.
That should happen easily, especially with this social media. We can, we can all repost as much as possible. And you may not think so, but we can reach as many people as we can. You know, you have LinkedIn, you have all these different things, and I'll be sure to mention it all the time. That's a great thing. Whoever set that up, we appreciate you.
Okay.
And that's the thing, it's going to take work from all of us. This is a lot of work. Absolutely. So we have that number there, and I will continue to push that. Black Service Podcast. Any last comments?
No, I just wanted to thank the senator for just coming on here and giving us the information. It's for me being as young as I am, it's good to know that my ancestors and that you know it's something that's being taken seriously now. And I mean, it's a long time coming, but it's something that's being taken seriously. And then there are people in the
Yes.
background that are working hard to make sure that it gets done. So, big thank you for that. And that's pretty much it for me.
Thank you so much for participating. Brother Rahim, you got any? Can we hear you? Got anything to say before we end? Can you hear me? Do you want to say anything? Okay, so he's saying peace and thank you. He is actually the reason that I met Senator Bass through Brother Rahim. So we are working. That was like, they say something about 6 degrees of separation. Well, to me, that was like 1 degree to get to, someone such as the senator. So that was great. And continue to elevate and progress in your position and everything. And we hope to see you again soon.
Thank you. Look forward to it.
Yes. Thanks so much for coming on Tanya 23 Experience. And please text me the information for coming to DC next month. I would love to be there. Thank you. Peace and love, everyone. Until tomorrow, we'll be back Sunday at 7 p.m. and the discussion will be um, our children in these public school systems and how we can homeschool. So please come through. I will be sending out the info sometime later today for tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Black Service Podcast. Thank you so much. And I'll be talking to you shortly. All right. Peace. Ashe.